you've mentioned a couple of different times now as it related to your previous marriage and to your father's health condition. You have mentioned what seems to me a desire to talk about mortality or talk about being at someone's bedside and forgiving them for hurting you and for harming a love that you don't extend to many.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you just like, it's kind of like what I was talking about, growing up and not realizing that things should be affecting me the way they are, or whether it be like, Antonio Fonseca or any of that stuff. Like, growing up, I mean, living through some of the things that I've lived through recently can be like really tough. So my ex-husband, this Reader's Digest version, we were together for 8 years, married just for one because he cheated, and I divorced him. And at the time that we had met, which was back in 2009, he was 22, I was 31. He was HIV positive, I was not, I still am not. But he had a bunch of red flags, and I just took them all as challenges. And so, whatever, went through our lives together. We get a divorce. And then he attempted to kill himself, like immediately that same day once I decided that, the marriage was over. And when I told his friends, I said, hey, you might want to check on David. I think he might do something stupid. And they eventually did check on him, and he was on a beach. He was passed out after having taken a lot of drugs, a lot of painkillers, and a lot of alcohol. And they just thought he was drunk. And so, because he was an alcoholic. We talked about that in the past, but it's 7 o'clock the next morning, and I've been awake all night. I'm crying in bed, and I call his friend and said, hey, I need to talk to him. Where is he? And they told me he was still in the car. And I said, what? And I raced over there, and I opened their car door, and he was in the back seat, purple, choking, like dying. And I immediately called the ambulance, and they came, and they literally saved his life. They said he wouldn't have lasted another half an hour. He was asphyxiating on his own vomit, that type of stuff. And so he goes into the hospital, and when he is, he's sedated, because when he comes to the first time, he loses his mind, and it took 9 employees to hold him down, so they sedated him. And so, meanwhile, this is at a time where I've never hated somebody more, right? Like, the idea of marriage to me is a huge, respectful institution that I care about, because my parents have always been together. And he ruined that for me. And so the same, like within 24 hours, or maybe 48 hours, I am now forced to come to his bedside to talk him down from when he is coming out of sedation, because he keeps freaking out. So the person who I hate with all my heart right now, I have to sit there and be super loving just so he can calm down, and so we can get him out of sedation, and so he can understand what's going on with him. And so I sat there for hours, repeatedly, Dan. Like, he would come out of it. It was intense. He saw me calm down a little bit, get more intense, sedate him again. And so it's one time, another time, like 6 or 7 times I have to be like this loving person to calm him down, to remind him, hey, do you remember what happened? Do you know what? Okay. So we go through that, and then once he's come to and he's normal again, I leave, and I just lose my mind again. It's just like, it's a lot right there. And so fast forward, he comes out of the hospital. It's been a week. He's having like memories that didn't actually happen, that happened while he was sedated, and thinking that it actually happened and asking me about them. And I was like, that didn't actually happen. I don't know what's going on. I made the decision for my own personal well-being to cut him out of my life. I don't need the drama that comes with, whatever he's trying to rekindle or what have you. And so it was cut and dry. It was, once the papers are finalized, I do not want to speak to you. If we come across to each other, that's fine. We'll be civil, but I don't want to talk to you. Well, it turns out that after a while, he frankly just, when I actually stopped talking to him is when I convinced him to get back on his HIV meds, because he was playing the little, emotional whatever game where he was just, I'm not going to take my meds anymore. I was like, yes, you're going to. So I talked him into taking his meds again. Once I knew that was good, stopped talking to him. Turns out after a while he just stopped and never stopped drinking. And then the pandemic hit, and he had just broke up with somebody else he was dating, and so he never left his house. And so one time when that other guy he was dating came back to collect some of his stuff, he came out of the house after about 2 weeks, and he was green, and he had this big thing hanging out of his stomach, sticking out of his stomach. And his partner told him, or his ex told him, you should go to the hospital. He went to the hospital, and they just told him he's got about 2 weeks. And I hadn't heard anything until I heard, from a friend of ours. And she told me what happened, and this is crazy, and it's stunning. And this is right in the heart of COVID, where you couldn't get into these places, right? Because unless you're like a mother or father, you can't get in. So his mom kind of finagled things and got me in there. And Dan, I gave him the best years of his life, all right? And then I left him, and I have to be comforting to him on his deathbed. It's crazy. He's 33 years old. And I have to ask him questions like, do you know why you're here? And he says yes. And he talks about, what he wants to do, in his last days. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ. And the only thing that I can think of is if I would have just communicated with you regularly, and made you know that you weren't a piece of shit, that you would take care of yourself. And I mean, it's killing me, phrasing, but it's killing me just sitting there looking at him. And I'm just like, I used to spend every day with him. And you see this D that I have right here? This is for him. And he's got an eye, I had an eye on his arm for me. And it was just I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, it's crazy. And I don't put that level of blame on myself, but I go through life and I'm just like, should I have, reacted more to that, or should just not to him, but I'm like, have I done enough to get past that? Am I still, reacting to certain things in ways? Am I still overly emotional about stuff because I haven't handled that yet? And I don't, I'm pretty sure I've grieved properly and I've moved past it. I don't blame myself, but it's to think that people go through this stuff all the time. There's a lot of people that have gone through stuff like this, and you hear, these sports stories, and it's heartwarming. Oh, he lost his mom. But put yourself in that moment for a second. And yeah, people say, oh, you lost your ex-husband. Oh, okay, whatever. You guys were already. But I sat there on his deathbed. And I'm frankly glad that I couldn't come back, because I was, allowed to come back another time, and they caught me, and I just had to talk to him on the phone instead. But I just don't wish that on anybody, and I have a sister now who's not doing very well health-wise, and it's just one of those deals where it's just you can just sort of see the future, and I don't, you don't like the way it ends. And so, when people go through these things, and just got to give them time and respect and just let them handle it, but also just, know that a lot of things can shift you. It can change you. It can change you in the wrong way. It can change you in the right way. And so hopefully, I feel like I've taken a lot of these traumas, or whatever you want to call them, and used them for the right way. But
sounds like you loved correctly, that you loved deeply, that